Welcome to another special Autogefühl episode where we once again combine great landscape views with great car visuals. This one here is the BMW X5 in the newest generation, and we will show you exterior, interior and the driving experience with special parts from Los Angeles, from rich neighborhoods, but also some highway experience. Highway number one of the famous routes there worldwide. And we're today here also at Pismo Beach or Oceano Dunes, one of the very rare places where you can take the car to the beach in the States and also worldwide, pretty rare. Enjoy this together with us here in Autogefühl, your number one resource for in-depth car reviews and your number one community to discuss cars with Thomas in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! When you are with a car on the beach, it gets dirty quite easily, but we already had some clear shots we took earlier for you. Here in this new generation, the X5 has a bigger front double kidney, but from the X7, the bigger brother, is even bigger. We also show you that on Autogefühl. You can check out that review. Those headlamps here, they come with LED standard, optional adaptive LED. And those ones here are the top laser light, 600 meters of high beam range, but not in the US at the moment. They are restricted to 300 meters just for regulations issues. If they fix that later on, they can also unleash the full power as soon as it's allowed. But we in Germany, for example, we can already get this 600 meters high beam range. 4 meters 92, 16 foot 1 or 194 inches is the length of the BMW X5, just a couple of centimeters longer than the predecessor of the generation. And the all-new X7 is about 23 centimeters longer, the bigger brother. The wheels here come from 18 to 22 inch, those ones 21 inch, in an M style. Really cool, really sporty, they look great, especially also with this color. You can see here you can get the wheel arches in vehicle color, as for the sporty trim, for example, but you can also go for classic plastic arch trim if you want more an SUV style. The rear windows are also here in this dark tone to protect the rear passengers a little bit more against views and sunlight. And also when you have it right there, people can not that well look to the trunk compartment. However, it's also nice when it's a little bit brighter on the rear, has surely pros and cons. The design here on the side profile is rather conservative. It's typical SUV style. Interesting that we have a design that goes in a swing up here to the rear door handles. And the tail lamps already begin here at the side profile. What do you think about the design? And the rear perspective, I really like the design here. Those tail lamps are sculptural, have a 3D look, also with the LED signature. X5 badge right there. And this one here is the 50i, the V8, and still has those fake exhaust tips, but the real exhausts are on the inside. Well, you can always argue about that. By the way, we have New Jersey number plates don't really fit to California here, but I think they still look somehow beautiful. So what do we have here? The 4.4 liter V8 in the 50i, 462 horsepower. That's still massive. Also here with those additional struts, the twin power turbo. Look at that design, even though it's not super clean at the moment. And there are of course other engines available. There's the 40i, the 3 liter inline 6 with 340 horsepower. The acceleration difference, by the way, is 5.5 seconds for the 40i and here 4.7 seconds for the 50i to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. And then there's also a plug-in hybrid, the 45e, 3 liter R6 with 394 horsepower in total system output. And then there's also the 30D, 3 liter 6-cylinder diesel, 265 horsepower, and the M50D 3 liter 6-cylinder diesel with 400 horsepower. Then almost as fast as this V8 here, but 0.5 seconds it still stays. So this one here definitely the fastest one. We'll tell you more about consumption later on when we drive the vehicle. This is the car key for today, and I prefer this one. It's a slimmer one, also with some M colors here. Well, there is also this big computer key, so to say, but I prefer indeed this one because it's just lighter and slimmer. Then keyless entry would be closing the car right there, just with one finger on top there, and then put your whole hand or just 2 fingers on the inside and then open it. Here with the Hofmeister kink design element also at the inside of the doors, matte door finish is really cool. Then also those buttons here are all automatic, of course. Then some leatherette being used here at the inside of the doors. They call it sensor tech at BMW. You can also fit bigger bottles, have a sample there for you at the inside of the doors. On the lower end right there, you can see that. And then there's also a sporty M-line interior, also with the M steering wheel. Some bright finish around it. There's also a heated function available if you want that, with an easy button at the steering wheel. Then the seats, they start as base from SensorTech, at least in the US, in black and beige. So good also to have those choices there, so you can get the leatherette. This one here is the optional animal skin package. And then all electric seats right there with an electric lumbar support. Can do a lot. Here even put the front of the seat a little bit longer if you have longer legs. This is probably one of the most beautiful side interior getting in shots we've ever done. Marvelous, right? So, well, getting in is easy, although the front door doesn't open that wide. I'm 1.86 or 6'1", and that leaves me still some decent headroom, although this one here is equipped with a panoramic roof. If you don't put the panoramic roof on that vehicle, you have even more head clearance. It's a very comfortable upright seating position here in the front. By the way, the seats from the X5 and the X7 are totally identical. The steering wheel here has an electric control right there in height and reach. And I've driven some decent miles both on the X5 and the X7, and it was really a pleasure of a ride, both in comfort and also in driving fun. Really cool. Then the electric seat control, you can also put the lower part higher. That's also recommended for longer trips, for example. I like to keep the front part of the seat a little bit lower. Interior overview, it's very nice and clean as for the design. 2 screens, 12.3 inch, left instruments, right side infotainment system. Then this glossy wood cover we have here, but there's also different trims available. You can get different wood styles also. Then there's a CenterTech leatherette dashboard all the way over, wrapped tightly, very beautifully done. In the X7 there's also the same one, but then there it's a little bit more plush when you feel it, but just a minor difference. Still a separate unit here for the AC, there it is. And you can also have the 2-zone AC in the front, very cool, that you can also control where the vents are coming from. This is very interesting. Then those digital instruments, here, let's light them up. And on the right side you have the RPM meter going counterclockwise. The one that is red flashing here at the moment, this one, you don't see the red flashes, by the way, with your own eyes, just on cameras. And this one here is checking you out if you're still awake, and then is giving you the recommendations for a break. And in the middle part you are a little bit more flexible. For example, you will have a GPS view in the middle right there when you have a route planned. Coolest position to film the head-up display together with some birds and right on the beach. And you have the current speed, the allowed speed will appear there, and also some GPS route informations, again, if the route is running. Steering wheel, right there for the heated steering wheel. And on the right side you can control the volume on the upper part. Then there's also this microphone button if you just don't want to say hey BMW, but just want to use the button. Sometimes that's easier. And on the left side you have the controls for the adaptive cruise control. You can also switch the modes if you go to this semi-autonomous driving mode. I'll tell you soon more about that. Let me first show the voice activation. Hey BMW.
Hello, what can I help you with?
Drive me to San Francisco.
Perfect. Our next destination is San Francisco, California.
Hey BMW.
Hello, what can I help you with?
Add Monterey as stopover.
I have found these two addresses. Which should I...
So, let's see if we then get also that one as a stopover. So, it's calculating the route. Here we go. There it is. And now we have first Monterey and then San Francisco. But what you can also do is, for example, change the temperature. Hey BMW. Hey BMW. Change the temperature to 72 degrees.
I'm setting the temperature on the driver's side to 72 degrees Fahrenheit.
Here we go. And the rest of the infotainment system here. Zoom in and out with the central control knob. Right here at the beach. Very beautiful, but you can also use it as a touchscreen and it's really responsive. The software solution is great. The menu structure can sometimes be a little bit complicated. Here in the car menu you can check your consumption, for example, or also have those sport displays with a G-force meter. And the Apple CarPlay connection would be wireless or also Bluetooth connection. That one you have to go then when you have the Android, well, because they are not supporting Android Auto yet. Overall, I rate the infotainment system very well, especially with the new voice recognition. Again, just the menu structure could be a little bit easier. Then up close again with this unit here, left lower part for the seat heating. And then there's a separate climate unit with the screens. And it's really good that you can control the temperature and where the vents are coming from right there. And for the assistant systems, you hit this button, by the way, right there. And then you can also individually control them, which of the assistant systems you want to have on or off. One of the deals I really like is this metal knurled button here still for the volume. Still like to have this one here as a somewhat analog input. And in the lower part, you can slide open that one here. Then you have the inductive charging pad for your phone. Oh, schmoozy greetings. My cat, one of my two cats. Then there's a normal USB port right there. Interesting metal knurled ashtray, but please don't smoke in the car. Please don't smoke your premium cars. Then some cubby hole right there. And good adaptive cup holes. They also fit for bigger bottles. 12-volt power supply. option, you can get this crystal package where you have this crystal gear lever. It looks really spectacular, but you'll also be fine with the base one. Then you can pick the driving modes. If you have the air suspension, it also will change the air suspension 4 centimeters up or 4 centimeters down, depending on the situation. There will also be an air suspension button right there to rule that one. And then a metal knurled knob here too, again with this crystal package. You can zoom in and out in the maps, and you also have some hotkeys all around. Then in the top part, I really like this option here with those wing lights. We used to have those also as a tail light design from the BMWs. That one is gone, but it's still on the interior. I just love those. And the split armrest right there with some storage space, and there is a USB-C port. This panoramic roof can be opened. You already have a good view right there. It goes all the way over the vehicle and leaves some more fresh air in, and you can actually drive decent speeds with it and still have it opened without too much wind turbulence. And now the rear compartment. Well, it's a long vehicle already. Don't forget the shoe tab, especially when you're on the beach, but still the sand will get anywhere. So, and of course I do fit here as tall adult and have some room in front of my knees, but still, considering the length of the vehicle, the package is poor. That's one of the problems. You don't have too much legroom right there. It depends also if you put the sport or the comfort seat. That also makes a little bit of a difference. Well, you know, it's really enough, but then you have to think about that some other cars have just better package if you compare exterior length to interior space. Headroom is also no problem right here for tall adults. You feel very welcome. Also with the panoramic roof, you have best views to the clear sky. And the seating position is also quite comfortable. When we compare, for example, the Mercedes GLE, the new GLE has more legroom. However, the rear bench falls backwards even more. I don't like that. Here, this is one, as for the seating angle, is still okay. When a rear bench falls too far backwards, then it gets uncomfortable. But here, I could also imagine, you know, longer trips, even though it's not the most ample legroom. There are different ways to open the trunk from the inside of the doors with the car key. Then you can also open it here with a button, just the manual way, so to say, electric hatch. In this case, you can see the lower part stays closed for us, you know, loading in something quickly in and out. But then there's also the foot kick opening mechanism. And when you use that one, both of the parts open. And this is really cool somehow, because you can sit down here and have some picnic, and you can slide in things easier. However, the disadvantage is when you stand in front of it and then accidentally, you know, hit the button here with your knee or so, then it closes. Or when you're having a picnic and you're sitting here and like la 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 like this, it, well, in this case did not, but trust me, we had some situations where it happened. Then you were sitting here, and then suddenly also the maybe the upper hatch comes out. It can be a little bit dangerous. So I think they should hide this button a little bit more. Then let's take a look inside. This top roof cover, well, here it's a little bit wobbly. You can also optionally get a 7-seater version for the X5, but it doesn't make too much sense in my opinion. That one would be rather for the X7 then. The trunk length here is about 1 meter. Also got my measuring stick right here, and also about 1 meter in width, a little bit more even, so a little bit more than 1 meter in width. Also put a cabin trolley here inside that you can see the size approximately, like this. Below this cover, it's really cool because there are hydraulic struts, and then you have some more storage space, also optional for a replacement tire. And then if you want to flip the seats, you can do it right here, and if you do it at both sides simultaneously, the chances are higher that the whole bench flips. Not quite, so I have to go around and help it a little bit, but that's always a trick if you do it with... yeah. It would have worked if the front seat would have been a little bit more in the front, then both of them would have been flipped. So this is also something to consider. There we go, and now we are all flat and have the maximum length And let me just see what that is. So to the driver's seat where I would be driving as a rather tall passenger, or driver, tall driver, there we go. And this is about 1 meters 80. So you're overall pretty flexible. It's quite easy to load things in and out. Really happy with the trunk area. Well, again, you know, the split here in the lower part. I love the picnic aspect, but then again, next time hide the button a little bit more, BMW, and then they will all fine, I think. Welcome to Thomas's driving lounge with the BMW X5 here in the 50i, the V8. And at the moment we're cruising here through Brentwood, that's close to Beverly Hills, and a lot of beautiful houses here, very expensive neighborhood, where this car is also really fitting, because if you take a look around, you've seen a couple of X5, also a lot of Mercedes GLE, and there's the next X5 coming. It was not scripted, I'm telling you. I didn't pay this guy to drive there. Also some old Mercedes SL, that's pretty common here too. A lot of Range Rovers as well. So if you're one of those guys here, then best greetings. I know met some of our viewers here already, had some nice chats. Always great to meet you guys just on the road. Well, and we're starting here with some city cruising or some neighborhood cruising, where this car can be very calm. This V8 is, you know, full of performance, but then again, it can also be driven very calmly, because this V8, the big displacement and a lot of power, also gives you a lot of confidence that you can just control the throttle very gently. So that's also very fine. You really can just, you know, play with it a little bit. And that's actually what I like about the V8 even more than just the pure performance. Of course, you can live out that too, 4.7 seconds. Interesting really that it's 0.7 seconds faster than it is in the X7 with the very same engine. So this car is of course a little bit lighter, a little bit shorter than the X7. That also plays a role then in the performance. Also consumption-wise, by the way, very interesting. So here we have about 30 liters on 1 kilometers. That's about some. Let me check out this refueling station here. Yeah, it's about 18 mpg in US and about 22 mpg in the UK. Yeah, I mean, it's a V8, yes. You have to be aware of that. You have more fuel consumption then. However, if you want some better consumption, then you would go for the inline 6-cylinder petrol engine. Then you always save about like 2 to 3 liters compared to the V8, and it's like 4, 5, 6 mpg more in this case. However, the V8, of course, just gives you this very growling sound, but you only hear that when you really hammer the throttle. So you have to know for yourself if it's worth the extra consumption, the extra price you pay, and also less range if you drive it. So at the moment in the comfort mode here, really comfortable still, and also interesting that whereas we've been driving the air suspension in the very first BMW X5 driving review, we have the normal suspension here. It's still adaptive, but it doesn't have the air component, so we cannot pump it higher or lower. And it's a very good suspension, no doubt. Where do you feel difference to the air suspension? When you're going over some bumps or some humps, then you actually feel that the air suspension gives you more comfort. So you can, without a problem, buy an X5 without the air suspension. You still will be satisfied. But this carpet ride, which is still from the air suspension set a little bit stiffer than in the X7, you only have that with the air suspension. So if you are buying a vehicle in this price range and at this size, I can only recommend to go for an air suspension. It's surely one of those options that is really worth it to go for. However, still satisfied with the suspension here. BMW is going, having really well-built suspensions. So we also have a good compromise here of comfort and sportiness. Such beautiful houses here, also in the bright building style. Always just, like to cruise here and just take a look at the different architecture. Got that here, Alfa Stelvio. There's another GLK in the driveway. Another GLK. It's also pretty common here. A little bit smaller because the streets are not so big here as in the rest of the LA surrounding. Pretty interesting as for that. The steering, also satisfied with the characteristic. It feels very natural. It could be, and we had it in our recent BMW reviews, that it can be, a little bit more reactive in those very narrow angle areas, like right here, because then not so much is happening. Probably they thought about it gives you a little bit more calmness while driving, when it doesn't react that much in that case then. But I think it's better to have feeding directly, when you're using it at very low angles. That's what I would actually prefer. Still, as soon as you go like this, you have a good driving feeling. Sports mode turns up the RPMs higher. Well, in this case, I have to go like this because I told you earlier the RPMs go counterclockwise, which is pretty unusual and was only done by Peugeot. It's pretty weird on the one hand, but then again, it saves space to have more GPS view than, for example, available right there. So again, I think we get used to it. So let's hammer it a little bit. There you have this nice V8 sound. However, on the inside, it's definitely subtle. From the outside, you hear more of that V8 growling. And I talked about it also when driving the X7. The BMW engineers did not want to induce an additional sound actuator. They said, we insulated everything very well from the cabin. It's so silent in here. We want to keep it that way. And you can surely also argue for that. Indeed, the noise insulation is superb. It's so silent to drive this one here. It's really a pleasure. Also at higher speeds, no problem. Also on the motorway. Sometimes there's an X5. This one is the predecessor generation. You can see also that the lights are not as slim. The taillights not as slim as in this generation here. It's always good also to see, comparison to the generation before that. As for the assistance systems, we have a blind spot monitor. At the moment, I see it flashing in the right mirror. Let me go to the right side, and then you can see it on the left side. There we go with this yellow triangle. It's a really interesting option. Sometimes some markets might also be from standard equipment. If it's not from standard, check it out. You need this option. It's really important when someone appears in your blind spot. Always great to have it, especially here in the US, because if you are from the US and haven't driven in a European car, we have side mirrors which are not zoomed in. So we have like a realistic side mirror, which is going the same size than it would be, just in normal life. And that's, to me, safer and better because you have a more realistic impression of what's going on around you. Here, however, in the US, we always have this zoomed-in mirror, and then, of course, on the other side also, on the other side where it's normal, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. Everyone hates that. That's written right there. But I hate more the fact that it's really zoomed in on the left side. I think that's, really dangerous because it doesn't give you a correct image of what's happening behind you. Then even more important, it's those regulations. Then even more important to have the blind spot monitor. You can also get not only a normal adaptive cruise control, but also this driving pilot. And this one is really, really sophisticated. You can activate or deactivate this part here at the steering wheel with a nice clicking sound with the button. And then you can set the speed. But also, as soon as the system is ready, it only works at a little bit higher speed, not here, so I'll show you that one later. As soon as it's ready, it shows a green symbol there, green steering, just in the head-up display. And then you can go forward and it keeps the car in the lane. Really interesting. Soon we get to a little bit higher speed. We'll also go to the highway number 1 very soon, and then I can show you that. It's a really interesting system. And in the X7 recently, I've been driving all the way through Texas from east to west and been using the system all along. Oh, now already working here at 35 mph, and basically it's when children are present. Are children present? I think at the moment not. Everyone else is driving faster. So here now the car keeps itself in a lane. You have to keep your hands at the steering wheel. It's not meant to be as a full autonomous system yet, but you see it theoretically does work. The car can drive itself, but again, never trust on it 100%, because, for example, on the motorway, when you can drive off the motorway, then the line is not drawn through, and then car thinks, oh, I get off to the right, but you want to keep straight, and then the system fails. However, as soon as the lines are really set very well, right and left, then the system is basically flawless, and you can really relax, especially on long motorway drives where you have no traffic and just like, let's say like 55 mph speed limit. Just set it in, car keeps itself in lane, sometimes corrects a little bit from right and left, but still it's somehow more relaxing than handling the steering wheel and the throttle yourself all the time if you're on a boring motorway ride. However, you can always deactivate it if you have some more sporty corners and so on. And then it's really cool to drive the car yourself. It's really a lot of fun, although it's a big SUV. Also, if you compare it to the X7 was also a pleasure of a ride. However, this one here, as it has a shorter wheelbase, feels more agile, is a little bit more fun to drive, feels for that also a little bit smaller. You can also go optionally for the rear axle steering. If you have this one, then it feels even more agile, really cool option, and also reduces the turning circle. So I can also recommend that option. However, it's really expensive, so you have to think about if your budget is still, still ready for that. Oh, that Range Rover is going quite fast, Very beautiful in white, though. I like it when the Range Rovers are in white. What do you think? There it is. If you compare it, by the way, to the Range Rover here, the X5, yeah, the Range Rover has a very unique styling, but meanwhile it's also a quite old car technology-wise, and this one here is miles ahead as for the technology in driving. So the Range Rover and this one here, you cannot even compare it in driving, because the BMW is so much better in driving than the Range Rover. However, I can still understand Range Rover fans. I also really like to drive them. They also have this very high command driving position, also pretty cool. Then, for example, also new Range Rover Vela also offers some more alternatives in more sustainable seating surface, for example. It's also very interesting. So they have their pros for sure, but in driving dynamics, BMW clearly is among the top. The Audi Q8 we had recently was also right there, also great, a compromised sportiness mixture. That was also one of the best in driving. So at the moment, as for the driving fun, the BMW X5 and the Audi Q8 are my favorites for the big SUVs, or for full-size SUVs. And for comfort at the moment, the new Mercedes GLE is my favorite, because the air suspension is more set to a very soft carpet right there, whereas BMW goes a little bit stiffer. You can compare the GLE then a little bit to the new X7. In the X7, BMW X7, the air suspension is a little bit softer, which is a little bit more to my pleasing, because I like to drive sporty in a lot of vehicles, but with those big SUVs, sometimes you think, you want to more, enjoy this soft air suspension ride. So that's it about, little different aspects, also comparing a lot of vehicles. I would say we take up the speed right now and take it to the Pacific Coast Highway. Shall we? Some acceleration? Let's go. That was 0 to 50 miles. So like 0 to 85, 90 kilometers. And wow. Pretty cool. And the all-wheel drive, the permanent all-wheel drive, still has a good distribution. It has a rear-wheel bias. And now you also heard the V8 sound more in action. And well, this is one of the very rare cases where you can use this acceleration also for safety, so to say, because I was parking at the side here of the Pacific Coast Highway, and then I wanted to get on the road, and a lot of cars were coming from behind, and then I could get up to speed pretty early. And so if you are discussing with your wife if you should go for a fast vehicle, you could say, all for safety reasons, that in some situations I can have a good acceleration just for safety, just for safety. So, yeah, might be an argument. Yeah, and now we can have some nice scenic views here. Those beach houses here at the left side, all along the coastal line. This is here the path between Los Angeles and Malibu. So we're heading towards Malibu right now. And sometimes during a review, a red traffic light is good, especially if you want to hear some more of that V8 sound. However, I can already say again that those diesels from BMW, you cannot get them in the US anymore, because they said, since VW ruined it for us with the diesels, we also don't offer them here anymore. So you just have those here. Well, but I really have to speak for the BMW diesels in this case, because they are very fuel saving. I've driven them especially in the BMW 5 Series and had some incredible low consumption figures there. That was pretty cool. And they also have really abundance of power. And with the SCR injection, they are also very low NOx levels. So that's actually also quite good. And for long-term hauling, that's actually making sense, because it has a very long range. Now, we can also set the cruise control once again. By the way, from the sports to the comfort mode, if you're all, no matter if you have the air suspension or the normal adaptive suspension, it always changes a little bit. In the comfort mode, then it's a little bit softer. In the sport mode, it's a little bit stiffer. When you have this set cruise control, and together also with this highway drive pilot mode, again, the car keeps you in the lane, but it's not really that you would say, you feel bad doing that. Here again, the lines on the left side, on the right side are quite well done, so the car is realizing everything of that. And now again, the car keeps us in the lane. Sometimes it's, correcting a little bit, but here, for example, you see it's doing it very calmly. So, by the way, we can also test the launch control for you. We go to the ESC off, well, not completely off, to the sport traction mode. That's the medium ESC off mode. And then we put the, let's see, just if it works that way. No, it doesn't. So we have to put the shifting lever sideways to the S mode. And then this combination, S mode and sport traction mode, then the launch control is working, and I can put my left feet on the brakes, right feet all the way down, pedal to the metal, and then just wait in this freeway. Wow, that went quick. Nice. Well, that's where you can retest that V8 performance. If you, by the way, heard this strange sound towards the end, that was the sideline here of the highway, and it's creating those noises that you know when you get off the road, but we were going on the road again from that parking lot. Well, that about the performance figure. You could also you maybe see this G meter that is also available from the sport displays. And on the other hand, also checked again with the consumption, and if you go highway, well, let's say predominantly highway, then you can also score some better consumption figures in general, like 20 mpg US, 23 mpg UK, or also some 12 liters on 100 kilometers. Again, will be a little bit worse than as for the consumption where you have more city traffic or so, for example. But indeed, if you compare it to the BMW X7, the X5, it's a little bit lower in weight and has some lower consumption figure. It's not a huge difference, but it is a notable difference. And it's really interesting also as for as for this assistant driving mode, because when I was trying to do it on the highway number 1 earlier, it did not work because the car was realizing, as for the GPS from the map, that would not be a suitable road. And as soon as I went to the freeway, it did work, you know, to the 101. So the car is checking GPS map data if it's a suitable motorway to unleash the full driving potential as for the autonomous, semi-autonomous functions. That is really interesting. So it obviously needs not only 2 lanes, but also the GPS input that it's, you know, a faster motorway or something like that. So the lane change works on the freeway. Here we're again on the highway number 1, but we can drive now 65 miles per hour. Obviously this is something where the system says, yeah, that's fast enough, that's probably a proper motorway. So here when I use now, there it is, here we go. So that the car did it alone. You have to keep your hands on the steering wheel nevertheless, otherwise I also get the yellow warning light also here appears at the steering wheel. Here back again. So I'm not doing anything at the moment. So all by the car, and then getting back to a lane. So it's really good and useful, because otherwise when I have this system activated and do the lane change myself, then I have to work a little bit against the steering wheel. That's not that convenient then in that case. So I'll try it again. Here the car is being kept, and well, as soon as you use the turning indicator, it gets deactivated somehow, so that does somehow work. If you don't use the turning indicator, which you should never do, then it's somehow strange in the steering wheel. Well, you know, it's a way towards the autonomous drive. Why not? And again, our friends in the US, if they order this top driving assistant package, they can still use it. Well guys, it's been a lot of fun to drive with you together through Los Angeles, up the highway number 1, and also here at Pismo Beach near the Oceano Dunes. Really been a great trip. I hope you enjoyed it as well. The BMW X5, I think in design, a very likable SUV. It's strong in the front, but I think they have a beautiful, let's say, it is a conservative design. Yes, they did not do too many experiments, but I think it just works for this vehicle. The interior has been upgraded in the interior quality massively. That's really cool. So they have a great build quality. They have also sensor tech options if you want an animal-friendly option. And it just works out well in the interior. Now with the new voice recognition, you also have more infotainment usage there. The only thing is that you don't have too much rear legroom. That is one of the downsides of this interior. A little bit better than with the BMW X7. However, that one is of course also longer. You can compare the driving views there too. Driving-wise, one of the most fun big SUVs. Really nice. The base suspension also just does fine. However, for this segment, I always recommend an air suspension to have a softer, more air carpet ride. But here still the X5 sets a sportier note as for the air suspension too. The V8, a lot of fun. Yeah, that's clear. However, the consumption is also quite high, so you have to be aware of that. The diesel will give you a better range. This one then here for the most confidence in driving. What do you think? Tell me your opinion on the all-new BMW X5, and also tune in to our other episode of the X5 and also to our episode of the X7. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this one here, and we'll go into the sunset now. So it's pretty common here, just as a small extra here, that people go with a car on the beach at sunset, and then they're all over the place here. Really interesting. They get some food and drinks and have a nice evening together. Again, one of the very rare places where you can go to the beach with your car. In Europe, by the way, that would be on Rømø. It's an island in Denmark. That's also pretty famous for that. And here you can, well, drive maximum speed of 15 mph, so it's not too fast. So there's, it doesn't make sense to make a driving off-road piece here or so. You can just basically roll speed-wise, but that's good for safety, and you always have to respect the environment as well. And if you want to go faster, there's a place for renting quads here. And I've done it earlier. There you also go through a small creek. Also interesting as an off-road experience then, for going through water. And then you can, have some more sporty fun also on the beach than with the real small off-road machines. Isn't it just cool to drive here? And a scenic touristic extra piece between Cambria and Carmel is one of the most beautiful parts of the highway number 1, way up north. And see, it gets very rocky, very cool coastline right there. You can see the sea and the mountains at the same time. It's really a great drive. And well, for reviewing, it's sometimes better to have some traffic and some more various situations. But for countryside landscape driving, this one here is absolutely fantastic. I can just recommend it to take it once.